Hi, I'm Stan from Ballistic Systems, and we're going to talk about how to assemble the Sound Basic board. Sound Basic board is like a lot of our kits, easy to assemble, and they come with a set of fully illustrated instructions, so your assembly is very easy. And if you'd like to view those assembly instructions online, you can go to our website at www.photoballisticsystems.com. So anyway, this is what the board looks like. It's a printed circuit board, and it has a diagram of all the parts as they're laid out in the correct position. And we're going to use this as our guide to put the parts in to go ahead and solder up the board. A couple things that'll make life easier for you. You want a nice soldering station. Okay, we went to Radio Shack, and I found a very nice soldering iron that wasn't too expensive, that worked very well. And then they have a little soldering stand that holds the iron, and then there's a good solder sponge here to wipe the soldering iron off as you use it. The other helpful device is this little handy helper, and I got it from Electronic Gold Mine. And they weren't very expensive, and I bought several of them because I also use them to hold the IR transmitter and the sensor board in our other system, so we have a nice area for objects to pass through, and we can trip from there. So let's start off with the basic sound board here and show you how easy it is to assemble. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert all of the resistors. And again, R1 is listed right here, and I'm going to go ahead and insert R1 into its holes. And I'm going to push it all the way down to the board, and then I'm going to go to the back side, and I'm going to bend the leads apart so that the resistor stays in position. And I'm going to do the same thing with R2. And push it all the way down, bend the leads, R3, now we have an R4 as well, but it's not this type of resistor. It's actually this type of resistor, a potentiometer. It's the blue part with the black dial, and we're not going to assemble that yet. So I'm going to go ahead and continue inserting the resistors into their appropriate holes. And after we've got them all in place, I'm going to go ahead and solder them. Okay, now all the resistors are in place, the lead's been bent so they don't drop out, and we're going to go ahead and solder this up real quick. The key to soldering, and I'm going to turn this down around here a little bit, the key to soldering is to make sure you have a good hot soldering iron and that the tip is nice and clean. If the tip isn't clean, you're not going to get a good solder joint. If the solder joint looks like a nice shiny Hershey Kiss, then you have a good joint and you can go on to the next one. So we're going to go ahead and solder here, and that looks like a nice Hershey Kiss. Notice I'm not putting a lot of time here. I come up apart, I put it to the other side, and I solder it right in. You don't want to apply too much heat for too long because it can damage some electronic parts. Now I'm going to trim some of these leads out of the way, so I can get to the rest of the parts I need to solder. And I'm trimming the leads right up against the Hershey Kiss. And we'll get to the next row here. Looks good. Looks good. And we'll trim these leads again. Okay, I've done all the resistors now, and I kind of look here, and I see nice shiny Hershey kisses everywhere, so all my solder joints look good. I'm going to trim the leads. The next part I'm going to solder is the integrated circuit chip, or the IC chip. This chip has a little dimple on it right here in this corner. Some chips have just a dot, and some chips have a little notch taken out at this end. All of those signify that this is pin 1 here. And that's very important. If you put the chip in backward, the kit will not work correctly. So you want to make very sure that the dimple and pin 1 go into the pin 1 position on the printed circuit board. And if you notice here on the printed circuit board, right here where it says U1, right next to it a little bit is a little 1. So you want to make sure pin 1 and the drawing of 1 go in the same place. So I'm going to go ahead and insert the chip. Sometimes the chip's leads or legs are a little wider than necessary to fit in the hole, so you just bend them in gently. Okay, and there's the chip. And if you look closely, you can see again that little dimple and the little 1 on the printed circuit board have aligned correctly. Again, if you have it backwards, do not solder it in place because the board will not work if you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and solder this into place. And you want to be careful when soldering a printed circuit board and IC chip. And I like to do it from the side like this. That way I eliminate the chance of getting a solder bridge. And in a second I'll show you how to use solder wick just in case you do get a solder bridge. So you notice again I put the soldering iron up there very, very quickly. Not very long at all. Go right down the row of pins. And again, I look for a nice Hershey kiss. Now, if I had a solder bridge, I'd use something called solder wick. And it looks like a piece of braided metal wire. And what I would do to get rid of a solder bridge is I'd put it right there, up against the bad solder joint, apply heat, and the solder then gets wicked right up into this braid. Okay, and after it solidifies, you cut off the used braid. So now that we've removed all that solder from that joint, I'm going to go ahead and resolder it. And we're in good shape. The next part I'm going to install is the C1. C1 is right here. And it can either be a little blue capacitor or a little yellow capacitor, depending on the manufacturer. And again, I'm going to spread the leads apart. And we'll solder that in place. Okay, we're good there. Trim off the leads. Now we're going to go ahead and solder in R4. Like I said before, R4 is this resistor. It's a potentiometer, and it has a dial on the front of it. And the reason we want the potentiometer there is we can adjust the gain. That's the magnitude of sound going into the amplifier. So if the object we're photographing makes a lot of noise, we can turn down the gain a little bit and reduce the sensitivity of the unit. So that would be much, much better in a loud sound environment. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to insert it right here. And I'm going to push it up against the board. And I'm going to spread the leads again, just like I did on the other parts. And that holds it tight into the board. Now sometimes you won't move fast enough and you notice the solder has stuck to the board. Just go ahead and reapply the soldering iron. It'll take a second there, it just released, and just go on to the next part. It sometimes takes a little bit of a trick in timing, and that'll come with experience. So we'll go ahead and trim the leads off. Next we're going to install the switch. And it's just a power switch, simple device. Now, sometimes the leads need to be bent a little bit so it'll stay in the printed circuit board for soldering. And we'll go ahead and show you how to do that. There's a couple tricks that I've learned over the years that'll be helpful as well. So we're going to go ahead to the S1 or switch position. And it looks like this one's going to fit and stay in position. But if you needed to, you can always bend one of these leads back or forth a little bit so it fits a little tighter in the hole. And that way, when you turn it upside down, it won't drop out. So I'm going to go ahead and solder. Okay. The last part to assemble is going to be the switch. And I'm sorry, not the switch, but the connector. And it goes into its position right here. And we're going to go ahead and solder it in place. And I'm going to show you the other board that I have done here just a second, and I'll get it here in just a second. This board, the microphone was put in place, and we also put in the solid state switch, the SCR. This is the switch that actually fires the strobe. And the microphone, if you notice, and I want to show you this on this board before it's assembled, it has a circle with the center pins off center a little bit. And the reason is the pins on the microphone are off center as well. And you want to make sure that you put the pins in the correct position on the drawing on the printed circuit board, because if you don't, they go in backwards, and the microphone won't work. But let me show you what it looks like if you put it in backwards. You put it in backwards, it looks like that, and that is not the way it should go in. You want it to look like this when you're soldered in, okay? And that way the microphone works correctly. The last thing I want to show you also, there's a little trick to the battery leads as well. There's a hole right here next to the battery position. And that hole is to put the leads from the battery connector through it and tie it in a small knot. And you want that there for strain relief. If you don't do that, you will eventually break the wires by moving them back and forth. And the trick to doing that is putting them in through the top, and tying a simple overhand knot. Then you would solder the black lead to the negative sign and the red lead to the positive sign. And that would supply power from your battery. And so what it looks like fully assembled is something like this. So this is a fully assembled basic soundboard. It's ready to be operational. And what we're going to do is we're going to test it here for a second. So I'm going to go ahead and hook a battery up to it. And one of the things that you want to do is you want to make sure your batteries are fresh. Once you start getting a battery that isn't fresh, the circuits don't operate reliably. So always try to remember to put a fresh battery into operation. So I'm going to go ahead and connect it. It's going to flash once here for a second. Okay, and now I'm going to turn the power on. So the mic now is activated sound-wise every time I say a word. And I'm going to be quiet for a second, and I'm going to tap the microphone just to show you. Bang, bang, bang. So that's how you assemble the basic sound unit. Not very difficult, very easy to use, and you can use this board to photograph balloon popping, light bulbs crashing into a surface, basically anything that generates noise that you use to trigger the photograph. And I will do a video here on our website to show you exactly how you would use the soundboard to capture something like a balloon or a light bulb or a dish breaking. So thank you. I'm Stan from Ballistic Systems, and you can find more information about our products on our website at www.photoballisticsystems.com. Thank you.